All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Lindi Delight.
And my name is Megatronic. That's my real name, yeah. No.
So this is a She Said So session. It's called She Can Play. For those of you who don't know about She Said So, it's an organization around the world of women in the music industry that aim to empower all of us. So I will let Meg introduce herself first.
My name is Megatronic.
Yeah.
I have a platform called Femme, which is based in Dubai, and it concentrates on elevating female-identified artists and creatives across the region. I also have recently opened a management company which has been going for a year, and we solely concentrate on POC artists.
Perfect. My name is Lindi Delight. I am from Canada, but then made my way to Dubai, then Berlin, then Barcelona, and now back to Berlin. I've mostly worked doing showcase events for headliner artists, such as Chris Liebing, DJ Tennis, Lee Burridge, and taking care of their brands and expanding them around the world. I started my own agency called Delight Management in 2016, where I take care of artists, brands, and showcase events. I'm also the founder of She Said So Berlin and the executive board member of the Association for Electronic Music in the live sector. A lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
That's it. So,
I mean, I didn't go that deep into my journey, but I'll tell you now. So
yeah.
I started in the music industry when I was 17. I started as a singer-songwriter. I was in a band called Black Cherry that basically got signed when I was like 23. We went on to tour all around the world. I used to play guitar and sing and jump around a lot. And after 10 years of doing that, I decided to step into becoming a DJ. Again, the same sort of struggles with being a DJ, like it was like starting from the bottom all over again. And I came in, I created a new brand, which was Megatronic. And I just basically went hard. I started in Stockholm, Sweden first, and built up my name there, and then also created music around the DJ concept. So it would be like a live PA show while I DJ'd. And then from there I moved to LA. And LA was pretty tough, actually. I thought it'd be a bit more like Hollywood, but it was actually like, it's a lot of, I mean, not to diss LA, just my experience with it was a lot of people who made a lot of promises and then nothing came through. And I had a friend who was like, come to Dubai for a holiday. And I ended up going to Dubai for like, it was supposed to be 2 weeks, and it turned into 6 years. So, so I started out there, and I basically, in the 2 weeks, and then I extended it to a month, I just noticed that there was like a gap in the market out there. And there really wasn't like much people encouraging the female narrative. And there was just like, I was meeting different people in different sectors, and they just didn't seem to know each other. And I was like, it was quite bizarre, because I find Dubai quite small, because I grew up in London, and London's a huge city. So I invented a platform called Female First Sessions. And Female First Sessions was about, basically it was an event all in one space, a multidiscipline event. So we had spoken word, we'd commission an artist to make a piece of art while the session was happening. We'd have a live artist that was only allowed to do their own material, no covers. Because I don't know if you've been to Dubai, but a lot of musicians sing Amy Winehouse all the time. I'm just over there. and then we'd have a DJ, we'd have a panel of a woman in business. And I guess overnight, it kind of really grew. And that's kind of led me to be on panels like this today.
Yeah, super. So what did your friends and family think when you said that you were moving to Dubai? What was their reaction?
Well, like, thank God. No. I mean, to be honest, my mum and my family are very used to me being, like, from when I was young, my mum always says this to people, that I was born at visiting time, like right in the middle, and she was like, you just always wanted to be like,
yeah.
She was like, that's you. And she's like, from when you was really young, you always had this design that you was going to see the world. Like, you used to talk about it quite heavily. And I spent a lot of time by myself, even though I'm the youngest of like 5.
Yeah.
But there's big gaps between us. So I think I just had quite an amazing imagination as a child. And my mum used to just leave me in front of musicals. So she'd be cooking for the whole family and I'd watch Sound of Music. And I think I just entertained myself. And I know that now because I definitely have an alter ego.
Yeah.
Like there's several people with me all day who are all me. You know, so not to say that I'm crazy, but you know, that's how so I think they're just very used to, they always afforded me that freedom. Yeah. Actually, and I think it's because my mum tried to do what I was doing, and she had super strict parents, and they made her become a school teacher, and she just hated it. So I think by the time, and I'm the last child, so by the time they got to me, they were just exhausted.
Right.
It's just like, do what you want, go where you want, we don't care. Like, yeah.
The reactions when I went to Dubai, because I also lived there for about 3 years, like everyone thought I was super crazy when I was going, but back then when I moved around 2008, we didn't really know so much about Dubai.
Yeah.
And it was also really new to me as well, going over from Toronto and just and landing there. Wasn't really much culture shock, but I was really taken back. But I know it's changed a lot since when I've lived there and when you lived there, and from when you moved there. But it was definitely a huge leap to try that.
I mean, there was definitely a lot of reactions among
Yeah.
like my sort of like Western friends were like a lot of people, and I still get that now. I'm not gonna lie. I go back and they're like, "Are you okay? Do you have to cover up? Can you go to the beach? Are you allowed to talk?" And I'm like, it kind of amazes me because they all know me, and I'm just like, you really think I would go somewhere where I can't be expressive?
Yeah.
And I think the kind of beauty of like being in the Middle East is that everything's kind of new. So there is that chance to like path these new ways based on some of the knowledge from the Western world, but then like forming it in our own way, you know, and that's what I've noticed. And and it's definitely like, I feel like I can push forward here as a POC much harder than I can in the Western world. So it's been an interesting journey actually, because like I feel here I get much more answers like, yeah, sure. Yeah. We can do this, like, and I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah, anytime I brought artists, because I brought like many house music artists and techno artists to Dubai, and I would always make sure that I took them to some of the older parts, like Bur Dubai, or take them to the souk and stuff, because I want them to see that the whole city is not just all these brand new buildings and it's all not incredibly modern, but I wanted to make sure they saw that side, so they had more of an open mind and really saw the just different dimensions of Dubai.
Yeah, right. I mean, like, Dubai's like the New York of the Middle East,
I
right?
guess so.
But, I mean, you literally can drive an hour and a half. Like, I just drove from Oman to Abu Dhabi.
I love Oman.
Then flew to Bahrain and then to here.
Yeah.
And, like, where I drove to in Oman was an hour and a half. And it's like, we drove through mountains. And so everything's there. I think people just, I guess we all live in a world where we're just very like this. And, like, just to... we kind of, everything's so instant now for us on our phones. So even just to move a little bit, it's like even just here, I'm sure there's loads of people that have looked into this room and have just walked past because they're scared to commit for that half an hour.
Right.
So I just think that's the same with like, you can live in the city for years and I can show you something new. So yeah, I think that's what the excitement was about Dubai, because I come from a place where everybody wants to live there, which is London. Everyone's like, this is great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. So I think like Dubai it's such a different landscape. It couldn't be polar opposite to London. So it was fun to explore it and be a little bit rebellious within reason. And yeah, and just create some new noise.
So I'm really curious about how you were like a front runner, singing in a group, and then also changing over now to become like a DJ and a producer. Like, what was that journey like? And then, of course, even going a bit further than becoming like an event producer, where you would do your Femme Fest and empower more women. How did that journey go?
It went smooth sometimes.
Yeah.
My journey with being a live artist kind of ended quite tragic, actually. Somebody in my band died. So for me, it was kind of hard. No, it's fine. It's very hard to kind of like continue that journey in that space. And I had a really incredible agent at the time who was like, whatever you do, just don't disappear.
Yeah.
And he was like, be a DJ. You know about music. You know music really well. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went and I think I brought loads of vinyl thinking I could be a vinyl DJ. I don't know if anybody's tried vinyl. It's really hard. Like, I respect any vinyl DJ. I got bored of that because I have a very bad attention span. So I brought loads of vinyl, took too long, and then I got a controller. This is like 12 years ago when controllers were literally like, they looked like Toys R Us, looked like a Lego machine had been made, you know? So I just basically drove like my flatmates crazy for months, just being like trying to figure this out. But I'm really nerdy. Like, I love technology, so the fact that it's all lit up, I was like, yeah. So I ended up setting up my whole room, so it was like a discotheque. And then every so often I would just do concerts. And then I got brave enough to go into a club situation. And I just basically played everything that I like. Like, I was like, I'm going to be that DJ. And it worked. And then it just kept on growing and growing. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden London were like, yeah, what's up? And then I started to get festival bookings again. And then it kind of just felt very natural. I was like, yeah, this is like how I should be moving. And then I think what happened is that I started to get to a level where I stepped into my power, and I believed that I was a bigger DJ and that I should be on better lineups. And I wasn't getting them bookings, and it was pissing me off. You know, it was just like bookings full of men, and I'm just very vocal. I can't help it. So I was just like, right, if you're not going to book me, I'm going to make my own thing.
Sure.
And that's how, and then it started with smaller little parties, and then, which started in London, and then I did stuff in LA, and then I went to Dubai and created a festival.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I think it's just me being rebellious, and like now I'm doing management because of, I've had that experience. I feel like, who better to manage you than somebody who's done it?
Right.
You know, and I think when I was growing up, I didn't really have mentors like myself, and I would have loved to have met someone like you or some of the other females that are around this festival to be like, yeah, you got this.
Right.
I didn't really have that, like, you know. So everything I did was really based on like people telling me I can't, hence the name Megatronic means half woman, half robot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's been a fun process. I wouldn't say it's been smooth. It's been hectic, but it's been great. There's a lot of door kicking in.
Absolutely. I can totally relate to that, you know, how your career evolves as you go.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, like I don't even know what it was that made me decide to start throwing events, but I just had an epiphany one day and I said, all right, I'm going to start throwing parties. And then I walked into a nightclub, spoke to the owner and just talked to him about music for a couple of hours. And he gave me like a tester night to promote. And I just ended up rocking it. So they hired me to promote for their parties once a month. And then during that time, I made my business card, and my promotional company name. And then I would go out and start building my database while I was promoting for that party. And that was like in 2005, I guess. And that was March 2005. And then a few months later was the first party that I threw on my own. And I don't know what the universe was doing, but it somehow lined everything up because I'd gotten a sound system and the sound system wasn't amazing, but like thankfully one of the artists that I booked was like, okay, I know this guy. We're gonna go to this shop and we're gonna get a proper sound system. So we ran, and honestly, it was like 15 minutes before we were supposed to close. And really, like from that first party, I just taught myself everything and, made mistakes along the way. But of course, I'm a quick learner, and I didn't really make the same mistake twice, but it was all like learning by doing. And there also wasn't, like you saying, there wasn't any mentors for me either. It's kind of like I just decided what I wanted to do and just pushed along and just created, my own space.
Yeah, I mean,
and as I started to build up and started to make more of a name for myself, this is when more attention came and started to team up with other promoters and doing bigger shows. And then that led me to live in Dubai and do just multiple, like I don't even know how many hundreds of shows I did in those 3 years, but yeah, like it's an evolution. And once you start and start teaching yourself all of these skills, it leads you to the next thing and then to the next thing, and then you realize, wow, I can pretty much do nearly everything, and then start your agency, which I did as well. And when I can do 360 degree in my agency just because of the experience.
Why did you like never explore being a DJ actually? Because most people who create parties, it's because they want to be the focal point of their party. You know, that's kind of how it normally goes. So how come you never really went down that journey?
You know, I'm not sure. It just never really was a calling for me. I never felt like I wanted to be responsible for someone else's entertainment in that kind of way, where everyone is watching me, and you know, I don't know. It just never appealed to me. However, when I did start promoting, I took some DJ lessons so I can learn how to play vinyl and beat match, just so I would understand what the DJ was doing behind the deck. So I wanted to understand that, but you know, I just never was a calling. And I like being behind the scenes, you know, making things happen, and you know, just navigating it and managing the shows. I always just really like to be that project manager, making things happen. And I think the only time I really like to be not that I'd like to be the center of attention, where I didn't mind when the attention was on me, is doing things like this. You know, when we're talking about our experience and doing panels and moderating and talking about the journey of the industry and stuff. This is more my calling, but being a DJ, no, I
was just curious.
Yeah.
Because you seem to know, you know quite a lot about music. I looked through your profile as well quite intensely. And I just wondered, so like, you seems like you kind of like, it's very house techno oriented. Yeah. So like, what's like the biggest artist that you've like secured for a party that you was quite like shocked that you managed to get that booking?
Wow. I think well, Giles Peterson was a big one for me. Yeah. It's hard to say because all of the artists that we book, especially when I was working with Life and Death, because with Life and Death we had 2 stages, and we would basically have between 8 and 18 artists at some of these shows. So just overall, like being able to put a program together is always a success, or is always achievement. But I don't know, I've worked with so many big artists that I can't really there's not really one that I'm like, whoa. Because I think they're all great. But Giles Peterson was a really cool one that we got for one of my shows in Barcelona recently, and yeah, but there's so many.
So you're based in Berlin, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's where the She Said So chapter is.
Yes.
So how did you come about building that community there? Because obviously, I mean, not obviously, but you're not from Berlin.
No.
So like, it's the same like I just turned up somewhere and was like, right, I'm going to do this, everybody. Like, trust me.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do the same? Like, how did you get people to trust you in a community that you're not initially from?
Yeah. Well, you know, when I moved to Berlin, I was working for an artist named Chris Liebing, and working with him, I was really able to get more deeply involved in the techno scene.
Okay.
And being involved in the techno scene and, you know, traveling around different parts of Germany, I just started to build relationships with people. And I think, because I moved there in 2011, and fast forward to 2016 when I met Andrea Magdalena, who's the founder of She Said So. I was talking to her about, you know, potentially starting a chapter in Berlin. And I just really felt that there was a space for it, and I felt that it would be well received by the music community, and especially the women in the music industry in Berlin. So it was kind of just taking a chance to see how that would pan out. And so I did the first She Said So event at Native Instruments Space. And for the first one, we had about 120 people come in. Yeah. So it just seemed like right away that there was definitely interest. So I don't know. I think when you're doing something that, you know, especially being a woman and maybe being someone that is a migrant background, where many people are in Berlin, that they kind of gravitate towards that and say, okay, let's try this out. And I also think She Said So as well had a bit of a reputation already, just globally, that I think people were maybe waiting as well for something to happen in Berlin.
So with that in mind, like, because I've got an installation over here, and like the question is like, what's your definition of feminism? Because like we got through our platform, somebody sent us like some feedback. Mm-hmm. About that the version of feminism that we was doing wasn't completely right for the region.
Right.
And I found that a really interesting like point, because I did grow up in Europe. Mm-hmm. So like what is like a feminist issue for me might not be the same in different parts of the world.
Right.
And so like what would be your definition of how you feel about the word feminism?
I try not to complicate it. For me, I feel feminism is just ensuring that we have equal rights and equal opportunities, and not really not making it more complicated than that. Just trying to have a balanced opportunities, balanced ecosystem, but I also feel it's important for other dimensions of the diversity wheel also having that same kind of equality as well. But I feel, just equal rights for us as women. Yeah.
Right.
And what about you? I'm curious. What about you?
My definition of it is kind of like, I don't want people to go through the same sort of, like, I feel like repetition needs to change. I feel like that's the most common thing that I see with this whole sort of barrier. It's just the same narrative over and over again. So, like, my definition around it is to kind of be more controversial, to be the girls, all female identified people that kind of are outspoken, that don't stand for no. So I'd think if I was to give it another word, I'd want people to be more brave in that situation, because that's what it needs. I mean, look, the worst somebody can ever say to you, the worst thing is no, and then it's done, right? You ask the question, they say no, you move on. So do you move on when someone says no? Well, or you can keep on trying, but I'm just saying it's not the end of the world.
No.
Right? And I think this is the thing that we're faced with, like, when one door shuts, like, people just leave it, and that's it. And I had loads of doors closed on me.
Yeah.
And that led me to making my own stuff. And I feel like, I don't think being a feminist is like solely down to it being a female, like, description, actually. I feel it's an energy, and it's an energy of strength. It's an energy of power. It's an energy of, like, you say no, I'll build my own wall. Yeah. You know, you don't want me to live in your house, I'll make my own house.
Right.
So I just think it's about having, like, it's a core, it's a strength, it's like marching. It's like knowing that actually you've got a load of, like, ancestral people behind you that have pushed you forward to get to this part of your life that's completely different to the journeys before. And you have to remember that every time you step into a new situation. And I think that's been my it's so deep.
No, I love it.
My definition around it, you know, because I know that, like, my grandma, my mom, my great, like, they all went through something, and even my uncles and stuff. And I think that's pushed through me. And I think that's what, like, when I think of the word feminism, it's like strength. You know, it's hard.
I'll remember that next time someone asks me.
Right?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, somehow, like, when people tell me no, you know, I don't even think that I let it resonate. Like, for me, if someone tells me no, I feel like this is not a no, it's really a not yet. And I just need to approach it in another way, or maybe it comes back again at some point in the future. But I don't think anyone's ever told me no when I listened.
Yeah, I mean, I quite enjoy it.
Yeah.
I like to hear a no. I'm like, really? All right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So that's what I mean. Like, I feel like it takes strength. You know, that's...
For sure.
Yeah.
And so being, like, a woman, and of course, like, a woman of color as well, like, how did you find navigating the music industry in Dubai, or just in general?
I think there's a lot, like, I'll be honest, like, and I just think it's a worldwide thing. I think a lot of the times, if you're a woman of color and you make music, people just think you're going to be making hip hop or R&B. It's like, it's just a knee-jerk reaction for people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, sometimes I honestly see people just say it, and I can tell it's just a program in their head that just opens. And I'm like, no, man, I make house. And they're like, whoa. You know, or I make spoken word. Like, I just make what, literally, I'll wake up and just make whatever I'm feeling. It changes all the time. And I think, like, when I started in the UK, like, girls being in bands, playing guitars, jumping around, like wasn't a thing. Yeah. And especially being a woman of color. So I remember Black Cherry, like, our first couple of releases, we never put our faces on any of the artwork, because people would be immediately like, eh? So we did it, we kept it up for years, actually, and then we got booked for this tour across Middle America, which some parts I would advise people never to go, like, for sure. Knoxville, Nashville, don't go there. They just don't like certain things. That is weird. But we got booked there because they had no idea what we looked like.
Right.
And I remember, like, I came out and I got the guitar, and this one guy, he could not help himself. He had to be vocal about what he had just seen.
Really?
And I'm not going to repeat to you what he said.
No,
It was pretty offensive.
I don't know.
But I just found it kind of interesting because cause then he stayed for the whole concert. And so I ended up having a conversation with him about it. And I think his first reaction wasn't so much about my color, it was that I was a woman playing guitar. And then the black bit was second.
Okay.
And I just thought, it's so weird that we've got, because if you really go through music history, like, and I wrote my dissertation about it, like, what color is music?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, like, classical music doesn't belong to, like, how it's shown in media. It wasn't solely made by white people. That's not true. Like,
no, of course not.
Music is so much more, like, in depth than that. And I think this is the problem, is that historically we're just taught so badly from the beginning about everything. You know, because if you grow up in Europe, you'll really only learn history about Europe. You know, and I think actually being a woman of color and playing guitar actually gave me more access to learn about who I am as a woman of color. Instead of going down, like, no, it's not saying R&B and hip hop isn't part of that journey, but it's just such a journey that I feel like black culture gets pushed into. You know, as soon as it's like black kids who can do sports. They're like, okay, play basketball.
Right.
You know, and in Europe, they're like, play football, run. And I'm just like, but what if he wants to swim?
Yeah.
Like, they always, you know, people always get freaked out when they see black people swimming in the Olympics.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And I just think that's been, like, sort of my design is always to be out of the norm.
Yeah, but I think, you know, house and techno and all of that just came from black music anyways.
Well, that's it, but I feel
but this story has gotten lost along the way, or
yeah, for sure,
diluted along the way.
It came recently back to life with, like, the certain things that happened over last year,
Yeah.
where people started to take ownership again. But I just feel like it's just weird that it was always kind of, that was how it was portrayed to me. Like, even playing the guitar was like, like, it was like, you sure you don't want to just sing all the time? And it's like, but I want to do and play the guitar at the same, and, like, mosh out with it, like, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started in the music industry, you know, I never really thought of myself as a black woman working in the music industry. I never thought about it. I just thought of myself as a person working in the music industry, and I'm pretty good at what I do and getting received pretty well. And I think it took quite a while for me to really notice it. And I think the first time was when I started working with She Said So. And I realized how important it was for me to be a woman representing in the music industry and really taking time for the younger generation and other women in the music industry and teach them things that I've learned and help them skip steps, you know, and from mistakes that I've made in the past. And I also, so that was the first even recognizing I'm a woman in the industry. And then I think as well as things started last year, there was kind of a resurgence of some important topics for people of color. And I think then I realized how truly important it was for me to be an example of a black woman working in the music industry, especially the techno industry, because there's really not so many of us. And now I really hold that in my power now.
Yeah, I know, I totally understand what you're saying. Because I think when we was growing up, my mum really tried her best to not make us be identified by our color.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, like, I went to school and the teacher let me know that I couldn't swim because of my hair, because I went to school with predominantly, like, white children. And my mum was really upset about this because she didn't grow us up with that institution. She didn't want us to be like that.
Yeah.
But actually there is a point where you kind of have to take, like, I wouldn't say responsibility, but you have to acknowledge your culture and just, like, every part of you, because every sort of, like, example that I'm setting is not only just for, like, women or black women, it's actually for everybody that is trying to do a similar struggle that I'm going through. And if I'm doing it first, then it's kind of like when you get to a wall and it's really high and there's 5 of you and you figure out a way to get all 5 of you over that wall. and you take the first person over and that person pulls the next person. And I think that's how it should be with like everything, you know, and I think that's kind of like, even if you are going to acknowledge like your heritage, you acknowledge it in a way that you set examples for the people from your culture, but also you create new lessons for other people that are not from your culture to know how to treat you, how to understand who you are. And like, you know, like talks like this, or encouraging the next generation to write books that have better understanding for people to read, it's kind of like opening doors, like sort of thing, you know? So I think, so I just lost where I was. I had a very beautiful point. But yeah, I just think it's important to like lead by examples, and obviously stepping back into your roots and your culture is the way forward.
Yeah, last year I also started, I went to school and became like a diversity and inclusion trainer.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a small pivot, well, not a small pivot, a kind of bigger pivot that I made in my career during, because I wasn't really able to do events. And this has been a really incredible journey, like going into music industry organizations and training, you know, the top executives from some of these big organizations that are not very diverse at all, you know? And I think this has been a really important space for me to be in right now. Also going to like different nightclubs in Berlin as well and doing training with them. I think it's a very important, a very important role that I'm playing at the moment, and just trying to ensure that we can, or that I can help facilitate integrating more people of color and women into the music industry in the future.
Yeah, I mean, my journey is the same, but it's a bit kind of wider.
Yeah.
You know, like my focus is generally towards like a sort of POC narrative, and that includes like one of our messages is like the Swana region, because like the word MENA is a word that was developed by Europe, and it's actually not like right.
I'm so happy that you said that.
Yeah, it doesn't like, actually my partner Stavros can explain it so much better than me, but it doesn't make sense.
No.
So like that's been our real focus, and it's been really interesting actually, because there is some sort of correlation between, like for me, what I've experienced is like the sort of treatment of being a POC actually. Like there is a lot of stuff that we kind of come up against, and it's similar, and it's kind of like, and it's deep as our parents. Like I feel that's the first narrative that I speak to a lot of people about. Like I grew up with African parents. I remember when I decided to wanted to do music, like my dad wasn't always very supportive of it, and he was like, it's a form of prostitution, which is it's a big I'm like, what? Relax. You know what I mean? Take it easy. Like, and then as soon as I started to kill it, he was like, yeah. You know, and I think they really wanted like doctors and lawyers and stuff like that, and they really pushed my sisters and brothers into that narrative.
Right.
And it's kind of, it didn't work for them, you know? Like, I mean, no disrespect to my sister and brother, but my sister wanted to be an architect, and they didn't think that was cool. They wanted her to be a doctor, so they really pushed her to do that. And instead she became a mum, which I don't necessarily feel like that's what she wanted. She's happy about it. But I think initially she had, and it's a shame, but you know, they both came from a culture where these were things that were like really well respected jobs, and like, and so my experience is like when I talk to somebody from Pakistan, or I speak to a girl from Saudi, like there's so much similar stories like that. So, and not to say that doesn't happen in, like, I don't know, I just haven't experienced that in a sort of Western culture. Like, when growing up in London, literally all my mates, their mums would be at everything. You got this, and I'll be like, my mum would just never come, not because she didn't want to, because the idea of it is very different for her, and it took me a while to kind of get around that, you know, because at first I think we mistaken it sometimes with maybe that sort of POC love is from our parents is a totally different thing. And I think there's something in the strength of like, you go and do that degree, right? I'm sure there's a couple of people in here who are qualified doctors who are now doing music, right? And it's kind of cool that you have both of them things.
Yeah.
You know, like I went to university, and trust me, like I literally spent 3 years thinking, why am I here? But I came out with a degree. I got a first. I also went on to play Glastonbury.
Right.
Both achievements I'm very proud of, but you know I did that because of the journey that they had pushed into me, and
Right.
I think there's just like I don't know what it is. I think it's just that sort of ancestry, like way of like pushing forward is very present within POCs only.
And I'm really curious about the whole agency side of things. Like, what's your team like? Do you have people working for you? Do you do things mostly on your own?
I mean, I wouldn't say working for me. I like to partner with people.
Yeah.
Like, because I think I've understood that, like, to do things right, like building collectives or like creating a community is about understanding each other's strengths. So I know that I'm really good at this part, and that I can get somebody who's really good at that. And I think for me, sorry, it's Mike's. I think that's quite important to. So the way I build it is kind of like, I'm just the dad, and there's loads of people that are doing their bits, and then we all sit and we feed back to each other. But like, I'm quite happy to let my partner, like Stavros, like, he's really good at visuals. So I'm like, yo, this is you, do it. Like, I trust you. And for me, that works better. Because I'm not really into being like, I'm the boss. Like, I'm the boss in my head, but you know, like, I don't like, that's not really a style that I'm comfortable with.
Right.
You know, because I'm fun. I just like to be silly.
Yeah.
So if you work with me, it's going to be, there's going to be hard times, but we're going to laugh. You know, and anybody I bring into the team, we're all in it together. Like, we're working together to make a better place. You know, that's the end goal.
Right. Yeah, for me I'm a little bit different. I really love to work with teams, but I also really like to build my own teams. You know, I love to find people that don't necessarily have all of the experience, you know, that I really like to train them and show them how I do things and how I work. And then empower them as well to kind of take the lead after. And I started building up my team quite a bit. I managed to get it up to, I guess I had 6 people working for me.
Cool.
But also, when I'm introducing people, I never say this person works for me. I say, you know, this is my colleague. I always try to keep things on that level. But yeah, I really enjoy building teams. Yeah, definitely. I kind of miss it. You know, I think COVID changed things a lot. I had to downsize quite a bit, and but I kept it going for quite a long time. I think I made it about a bit over a year before I had to start letting people go. I really pushed myself a lot during the pandemic to keep.
I was just going to ask you about the pandemic.
I kept things running I tried to really push myself, and one was because I didn't want to slow down and lose the momentum. But another thing was when you have people working for you, that you find there's a sense of responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I felt this responsibility, which got a bit heavy, but I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. I wanted to make sure that I was pushing things along to make sure that they could pay the rent and pay their bills. So, it took quite a while before I let everyone go, but I have 2 people working for me left right now.
I mean, but you can build your team again.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. But it's challenging when you have to let people go around this time, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is kind of project to project based, so we kind of we build the team as it goes on, but I do have people that I'm partners with throughout.
Right.
And I guess for me, I'm just not as organized as you, so to be
I'm super organized.
I'm you can learn from me, but I'm literally a mosquito. I'm just so it's just you got you have to keep up with me and I know that because I see myself sometimes. I'm well, so you have to match that energy. So I think people learn from me, but they there's different factors that they'll take, and I think for me that's kind of how I've always wanted it to I just kind of feel like it works better for me when everything's kind of equal.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I'm this is your area. And this is mine, and we meet and we discuss and we overlap and
Yeah. So what's next? What's coming up?
2022.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe it's almost 2022.
Right? We are planning to do a 3-day festival in Dubai. The plan is to showcase anything between like 60 to maybe 80 female creatives across spoken word, music, live music, DJs, visual artists, and cinema, which is another narrative that we really like. We are putting it together very slowly. We're still trying to get funding for it, and it's going to be, all the artists are regional based, all people from the diasporas. So yeah, we did it. This will be our third year, and also because last year we did it all digital.
Yeah.
So we set up this, which went down really well. So we're going to have the digital space and the real life space, and yeah.
Amazing.
I know, it's going to be a lot. Yeah. What are you up to for 2022?
Well, such a good question, actually, because I've been focused on quite a few things at once in the past. My focus has been in many different projects. I told myself in 2022, I'm going to just concentrate on one project. And at the moment, I'm deciding which I decide to take. I have about 4 options at the moment. And I think by the end of this week, I'll decide.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, but I think it says something about putting all of your focus and energy into one thing, and I'm sure that you feel that as well when you're doing your conferences and your festivals. That
yeah,
you know, when you're really focusing on that and taking all of your experience and your time and just like throwing it into this one project. This is where really things can blow up and be successful in a big way.
And also it just feels it's I can't explain the feeling, but
yeah,
like when it works, like it's magic.
Yeah.
It's so nice, like that you're giving people that platform. Like I can't tell you, like I've literally kind of stood quite quietly behind it a lot, you know, like, but it's just wicked, man. I can't I literally the last day I'm always like crying because I just get mad emotional about it. But people are really genuinely happy, and we get such incredible performances, amazing pieces of art, like everything, like. And it's just simply because we gave someone an opportunity. It's that, and we paid them. We're like, yo, can you do this? We're gonna pay you, and they're like, yeah, and they just bring it, and I'm like, yes, like if that's all anybody needs,
yeah,
is a chance. You know, it's really that simple.
I have one last question. What does success mean to you?
Sleeping peacefully at night. You know. Sleeping the whole night through, without thinking like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if I'm just happy,
yeah, like
I think that's it. But also, if other people are happy, but I'm not measuring it. Money's not important to me.
No.
Like, I just like when people are buzzing. I like laughter. I like happiness, and if I'm part of creating that, then I'm gonna sleep well that night, and that's it.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you?
Me? Well, success means to me is just waking up in the morning and just being really excited and happy about what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. If I can travel and meet amazing people, be part of incredible projects, and just be inspired every day, this is for me.
Like even coming here was like, I was like, what? Sure. I'm gonna be in a panel in Saudi. What?
Yes.
I was telling mad people, you don't know. The way I've been bragging about it, because I was like, and they've treated me so nice as well. I'm just like, if that's success.
Yeah.
That means that I'm doing a good job. I'm being a good contributor to the universe.
Absolutely.
That's the person that I want to be. So. Yeah, man, it's cool. Yeah. Like, I'm excited.
Yeah, I was really excited to be invited here as well.
Right.
You know, I think that it's an emerging market, and I think it's so important as well for people like us to come here and also work with some of the women in this region to start empowering them to be successful in this industry. I think that was so important to make an impact over here. So, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, great. Nice chatting with you. Any questions in the audience? Do we have time for questions? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Hi, thank you both. Meg, I have a question for you, because you mentioned about pushing POC in this region versus the Western world, and you said it was easier here. Can you explain why?
Because we're the majority. Like, That's how I feel. There's more numbers here. That's how I look at it. Like, that sounds quite dark, but you know, so I just feel like there's more. The collective feeling here is stronger, and also I just think we're in a place where there's just a bit more opportunity because the Western world, everything, it's just been done a lot of stuff, you know. So I don't know. I just felt like the challenges I've faced in England. It's just been like a lot of rejection. Like I feel like 70% of my music career is like emails of people like gassing me up then to say no. Whereas I feel like here, if I'm coming with something beautiful for the community, people are down for it. You know, and I think it comes a lot from just how culture is experienced in this. Like even just seeing it, like when we ate, like we eat as a group, like, and it's a lot of food and that's it. And like, I think there's something in that richness. And that's everyday meal. It's not like, oh, it's on a Sunday. Because that's what happens in where I grew up. It's like Sunday lunch. But I feel like here it's like, this is like this daily. You go to your auntie's, there's mad food, right? And I think it's just that sort of like, here, I guess I feel a little bit more comfortable. That's the long and short of it. You know, I feel like I can see my people everywhere.
Any other questions? It's over here. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, ladies. My name is Gigi. I'm from Heavy Arabia Entertainment. We're based in Riyadh. I actually have two questions for you, but you can answer whichever you want. First thing, so we all realize that being a woman is difficult to get into the industry as is. How do you deal with people who tell you, like for example me as a Saudi, they tell you, so what do you even know about events? You've just had events in 2018. So what makes me comfortable working with you as a woman, of course, and someone who has just entered the industry? My other question is, since you shared the news that you were coming into Saudi doing these speaking sessions, etc., how do you deal with people who give you negative feedback? Like, why are you going to Saudi, supporting this and that, you know, taking government money? What do you say to tell them that coming here will solve the problem and isolating those people will just do the opposite? So, like, how do you address this?
Yeah, I can address both really briefly.
Yeah.
The first one is saying that women, getting in the music industry is hard for women. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that if there's anything that you want to do in your life, you make it happen. And there really isn't anyone that's going to stop you and say no and hold you back from doing that. So I don't necessarily think that it's hard. It might be challenging, but if it's really what you're meant to do, you'll push through that. And with the response of me coming here, my response is, if you feel you're going to make more of an impact by not coming, then that's your thing. But in my opinion, you'll make more of an impact by being a part of this evolution, being part of this journey. And for me, this is how I respond. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I'm just like, why not? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like, why would I not? Like, I've seen some of that feedback, you know, and I don't know, I think that's fair. You know, I think people have a very warped idea of places they've never been to.
Yeah.
You know, people are very opinionated, like, about everything. Like, till I was a certain age, I thought everything in Africa had flies in their eyes because that's all we ever saw on TV in the UK. It's like Ethiopians begging for food. It's not like that, you know, and because of stuff like that, it's always made me want to go and see things for myself. And I have friends from here that I've met who are really beautiful, generous people. So why would I not, like, it's rude for, everyone comes to London, so why would I not come to Saudi? I'm like, and I understand people's opinions, but I just feel like it's a lot of like media-driven conversations that we don't know nothing about. I don't know enough to have an opinion on your government, actually. And that's not what I actually care about. I care about your people.
Absolutely.
You know, so if you guys are out here making music and building something this cool, I'm like, yeah, I want to be part of that. That's dope.
For sure.
Like, you guys are just starting, like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do it together and let's do it the right way without all the nonsense of the music industry's history. So, yeah, I mean, then people are missing out.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
And I also say, you know, just at least go once. Go once and form your own opinion. And if you don't want to go back somewhere, then don't go back. But at least go once and try it out. And yeah.
That's spot
I think there was, okay, I think we're Good. But we can answer your question after. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Nice chatting with you.
Nice one, babe.